All right, we are here with Andrew Bumbalough. Andrew is a professional runner and grew up here in Brentwood at Brentwood UMC. His family has been members of Brentwood UMC for a long time. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your history, maybe with running or here at the church or wherever you feel comfortable talking about?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Brentwood, went to Brentwood Academy, and graduated in 2005. I was a member of Brentwood Methodist from the time that I can remember when I was a kid. I was baptized at Brentwood Methodist and raised in the church the entire time that I was living at home. And it was a really especially once I got to the youth group, was a pretty formative time in my life in terms of kind of channeling where I would go later in life. And I actually, met my now wife while in the youth group at Brentwood Methodist.
Yeah.
So it definitely has a special place in my heart.
That's awesome. Can you tell us just a little bit about your running career and how you got started in that?
Yeah. So in sixth grade, I was kind of new to Brentwood Academy and a soccer player kind of as a kid. And I was in school one day and there was a cross country meet, I guess, happening that afternoon. And one of my teachers just brought in some jerseys, was like, "Hey, who wants to come to the cross country race this afternoon?"
No practice.
And I was like, yeah. So I was like, sure, why not? Like, let's do it. So I had a really good first outing, I guess, as a sixth grader, and just really had a lot of fun. I mean, I didn't really know anything about running at that time, but that's kind of how I got started. And then, I was fortunate enough to have some really good coaches in middle school, and that kind of paved the way for my love for the sport. And then once I got into high school, I guess is when I kind of got really serious about my junior year, especially pretty serious about doing it. Like
that's when you knew it was kind of your thing. This was it.
Exactly. Yeah. I kind of started to have some success on the regional and like national level, and kind of realized, oh man, I'm pretty good at this. So,
you went from Brentwood Academy to Georgetown. Is that correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then Georgetown to Nike.
Yes.
Yeah. What are you've been running for a long time now. What do you think you're most proud of in your running career?
I would say, I mean, it's kind of an interesting time to be thinking about this, because I just ran the Olympic trials marathon back in February, and unfortunately for me, I did not have a good day that day. But I would say, one of the things that I'm most proud of is the kind of like longevity that I was able to have. I mean, 10 years as a professional athlete is, has its ups and downs, and it's not easy. I mean, I was very blessed to get to do that for a career for 10 years, no doubt. But there were definitely a lot of times where I would, if I was injured or things weren't going well, where I would be questioning a lot kind of my purpose, because as a runner, particularly, and a professional athlete, there is such a singular focus of what you are doing that if it is not going well, then a lot of times you can question, why are you even doing this? Like, there's so much more you could be doing with your life.
So. Right. You like had to kind of pivot and switch events after the 2016 Olympics trials. And what was it, the 5K that you were running before?
It was, yeah.
And then you just ran the marathon. So and you talk about longevity. I cannot think of running without thinking of that verse from Hebrews where it says, run with perseverance the race set before you. What, in thinking about all this, what does perseverance look like to you in your running career, and in your life in general, really?
Yeah, no, I think it's a perseverance is kind of a forced set of check-ins and like self-evaluation like over time. I think that the difficulty in our lives leads us to lean on something larger than ourselves.
Right.
And you know, for me as a Christian, that ends up being, it means that my relationship with God, and my relationship with Jesus, and then just the people that are in my church family in Portland here, kind of helping me always guide me back to that sort of like way of thinking. Because I think a lot of times when we experience challenges, we often try to fix them, or we try to solve them on our own. And I think there is an element of like, you do need to take action, but a lot of that can be like, if it's self-interested, or not kind of listening to like the inner workings of your heart, then I think a lot of times we go astray. And I think when we're able to calm down and kind of listen to what's here, a lot of time, I mean, for me, that's always been like, what's in my heart has always been kind of my connection to the Holy Spirit. I don't know that I've ever really had this cerebral connection that some people have. For me, it's always been like a gut or a heart feel. For me, that perseverance comes when I'm experiencing a setback, but then like that check-in with where my heart is sitting. So
do you find yourself doing that, like when you're running a marathon, like doing that constantly throughout the race, like checking in with your body and everything? Like,
absolutely. No, I definitely feel a physical connection. I mean, I think running is such a physical thing in nature that like, I feel like running has given me a great awareness of my body. And I think those feelings that I have in my body, like oftentimes I can connect back to like the spirituality element, and to like my relationship with God. And I think a lot of it just like is a gut or a heart set, that you kind of feel more strongly. And you're right, like, I mean, in training, certainly in marathoning, I mean, a marathon is a little, for me, it's a little over 2 hours, and that is a long time to kind of be in this like stretched, like physically and mentally, you're exhausted. But I think it is definitely elevated my ability to like to have those moments of reflection and prayer, and just kind of like spiritual bliss at times, that I don't know that I've always experienced just like in my just like day-to-day existence.
um, shifting gears just a little bit, you are a husband and a father. How do you balance this kind of rigorous training and race schedule with being a husband and a father?
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough. My wife has been incredibly supportive of my running, and kind of just the requirements that come with that. And you know, without her, like just her heart set and her mentality, like there's no way like I could have done what I did for the last 10 years, and also like maintain that relationship. So she's just like, she's constantly given of herself to where I could do what I did for 10 years.
Yeah.
I think, as becoming a father, we became foster parents in 2016, and the little boy, the first placement that we had, the little boy that came to live with us then is now our son. And that's definitely changed the game too, because my wife can understand what I'm doing, and that's an easy thing for her to kind of get, even if it's hard, like going away for,
right,
weeks at a time. But to explain that to a 4-year-old at the time, that was difficult. But that's what's been cool too, is just kind of opening that up to where he feels like he's a part of the process, and we're team Bumbalough, right? Like, it's not just me doing it. It's now 4 of us, since we have another little girl living with us too in foster care. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, it was funny. Like, one of the things that we did to kind of try to give that physical representation of that was, him like writing. So in marathoning, you get 8 water bottles that you get to set out throughout the course, and him like physically writing messages to me on
Oh,
the water
yeah.
bottle, like to where when I would get that water bottle at that, mile, 22, when I'm really hurting and tired, like I'm seeing his writing on the bottle,
That's
and it's
awesome.
kind of like a remembrance of why I'm doing this.
Yeah,
So.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Um, we have a lot of parents who watch these videos, particularly dads. Um, I'd say a lot of them probably have dreams for their kids to do what you've done in your career, to exceed expectations, to get scholarships, to go to the next level. What was your parents' role in your running career, from when you started out all the way through now?
I would say, man, I like looking back on that, I'm so lucky because they were the perfect balance. They really were of, hey, we're going to support you completely in this endeavor. Like, we don't really know, like my dad in particular, like, he didn't know what cross country really was
Mhm.
until I started doing it. I think my mom had a little bit more understanding maybe of what it was, but they didn't really know what it was. But they found this perfect balance of like, hey, we're going to like be behind you and support you. And I never doubted that. I always knew I had their support, but at the same time, they kind of let it be mine too.
Mm.
Like they didn't try to force anything on me, and um they never kind of got in the way of me just like learning from my coaches
Mm.
and letting the coaches drive the
Yeah.
agenda. And I think if you're blessed like I was with a good coach, like that is, I mean, that's my biggest advice to any parent who's wants their kid to be like excel in what they're doing, is just like try to connect them with a good
Yep.
coach or a good teacher, and allow them to like almost like let go a little bit. I think
Yeah.
in
Get out of the
parenting it's
way.
like, yeah, get out of the way, exactly, and allow that to happen. And but then always I mean, your kids are always going to rely on you first. They
Hmm.
always will. And so it's like you are their like foundation and their rock, and that's where they're going to get a lot of their confidence from, right?
Yep.
So it's like being that foundation, but then like pushing them out a little bit and letting them like experience success and failure kind of on their own terms.
Yeah. That's awesome. Uh, just a sidebar. I've worked with your mom for the last 5 years, and she is absolutely one of my favorite people in the whole world, and your dad is too. So I know the quality of people from which you came, and so I can just totally see that, like that they were like that growing up for you. Um, what what advice um, would you give to other parents who maybe don't know anything about getting involved in the sports world, and their kids are wanting to get into that?
Yeah. I mean, I think as a child, like the number like and I'm talking about grade school. The number one thing is just like play. Like
Hmm.
sports should be play
Yep.
until at least until high school. And so like I think there's kind of been this like move in the last 2 decades to like try to specialize in one thing and
Yep.
that's the answer. It's like, no, that is not the answer. I like until seventh or eighth grade, like I played soccer like in a rec
Hmm.
league, but like I was just running around my neighborhood, like
Yep.
playing with friends and like doing stuff like that. So I guess that's what I would say at that time. But I think the other thing is like as kids like start to express interest in things, get them involved. Like
Yep.
let them like if they're saying they want to play baseball or they want to play soccer, like do all the things. Like there's a ton of studies that prove that like specialization early just leads to injury and burnout. Like
Yep.
that's true. So like just like experience a lot of things, and it's even if it's not athletic related. It's like if your kid is like, I want to do like theater, I want to like
Mm.
sing, like do those things, because the broader base that they can build their kind of just like internal like confidence machine. It's like that, and like just the things that make them feel good, like that is going to only like help them succeed in whatever area they do decide to specialize in later.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like opening that up so wide early, and then like there's time always to like narrow the focus as they get older. And by the time they're junior or senior, maybe they're only doing like one or two things, but hopefully they're doing it like as at the highest level they can do it at.
Right.
So.
I love what you said about play. We've got a almost 4-year-old, and this year he started expressing some interest in soccer. We would be kicking around the ball outside, and he just really always was like, "Daddy, come play soccer. Daddy, come play soccer." And so we're like, well, let's try to get him involved in one of these leagues down here, because in Brentwood there's 1,000 soccer leagues. And so we signed him up for this soccer league, and it ended up being like a skills class and no actual soccer. And so he would go, and there'd be 6 other kids in this class, and they would do kicking drills and passing drills, but never, like, they were hardly ever allowed to just run around and play, which is what we were expecting it to be. And we were so disappointed with that. Like, we're like, this is not what a 3-year-old needs. Like, let him run, let him be a kid.
Totally. And I mean, I think some of the things that I've seen, like in the soccer league that our son has been involved with, is like, a lot of the drills that they kind of were trying to do were actually really good because they were just games. Like, they just made it's like they just turned it into something silly, and that's actually what got the kids to actually do the drill, but it was because it was play.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have one last question for you before we go. Lee, my wife, is one of the student ministers here at BUMC, and so I'm around the kids by default all the time. And I still hear kids, high school kids, talking about the records that you set when you were here at Brentwood Academy. And so that gets me thinking about this word legacy. What does legacy look like to you, especially as you're coming to the end of your running career?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that you want to be like, I think legacy is kind of how you're remembered. I think that's a lot of times what people think of with legacy, but I also think for me, it's like, how did you operate on a daily basis? What good did you hopefully spread in the world? What positivity did you bring kind of every day, even if things were looking kind of grim or rough? And not to say that you need to be positive every day, but it's just, it's that energy that you bring in the lives, in the relationships. I mean, so much of, for me, you asked like, what am I most proud of earlier? It's kind of like the longevity, but it's also the relationships that I built, through this sport that wouldn't have existed. That opportunity wouldn't have existed otherwise. So I think for me, it's like, how did I treat people? What lives was I able maybe to reach that I wouldn't have otherwise without kind of the platform that I had. And yeah, I think those are the most important things that I will take away from getting to do this. It's like, there were just, I mean, if I think about the athletic aspect, it's like there are more things that I'm disappointed about. It's in some ways but that's an athlete, right? Like, we always expect more from ourselves. So, it's not that I'm like disappointed in my entire career. It's just like, there's more I feel like that I can be proud of from the relationship building,
right.
And hopefully the lives that I was able to just kind of be a part of.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking with me this morning. I just wish you well in your, what's coming next. And so, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great talking.